As much talk as there is about Western civilization, we would be remiss not to take some time to listen up on the East. The East provided history with some of the first sparks of a complex civilization and intellectual thought. This audiobook primarily focuses on the main powerhouses of the East, like India, China, and Japan. These main focal points brought about tremendous cultures and civilizations. They are also interconnected with each other. Buddhism, for example, began in India as an offshoot of Hinduism. The faith would then travel to China, Korea, and ultimately Japan, where it would have a tremendous impact. The teachings of the Chinese philosopher Confucius would also have a tremendous impact on the region, one that can still be felt to this very day. This audiobook follows the history and thoughts behind these tremendous focal points of Eastern civilization. This guide not only documents the East's past history, but also looks at its continued impact on the present. In this audiobook, you will learn about the following: the early civilization that called the Indus Valley home, the development of Hinduism, Buddhism, and Confucianism, the many wars and conflicts that transpired in the East, Japan's development of samurai culture, the colonial and imperial age, how Eastern civilization has modernized over the years, and so much more. Much has been said about the history of Western civilization, but what about Eastern civilization? Yes, Western civilization is interesting, but there is a rich treasure trove of history just waiting to be discovered on the other side of that. Well, for the most part imaginary, geographic boundaries between the East and the West. Now in the East, one can find the very origins of civilization itself. After all, Gilgamesh, the hero of the first written epic, was not a Westerner. He had his feet firmly planted in the East. But before we go any further, we have to define exactly what Eastern civilization is. Just what do we mean when we say Eastern civilization anyway? Many would consider the civilizations that took root in Asia to be part of Eastern civilization, but the definition of the East is a very loose concept. Today, the geographic distinction of the East is mostly understood as including places like India, China, Korea, Vietnam, and Japan. But for much of history, the modern-day region we call Turkey would have been part of this categorization as well. It must be noted that Turkey, at least geographically speaking, is part of both Europe and Asia. The borders of the modern nation-state of Turkey had long encompassed a region dubbed as Asia Minor. For a large chunk of history, this region was considered the crossroads that spanned the gap between the Western civilizations that had sprouted up in Greece and Italy and the Eastern civilizations of Mesopotamia, which is modern-day Iraq, and Persia, which is modern-day Iran. At any rate, from Asia Minor to the Middle East all the way to East Asia, Eastern civilization has thrived throughout all of recorded history. Such a statement is by no means an exaggeration, since it was in Mesopotamia that the very notion of recorded history and the written record, remember Gilgamesh, first took shape. It is said that the dawn of civilization occurred some 10,000 years ago, when the Neolithic Revolution kicked off. This was when widespread agriculture first developed. The Neolithic Revolution was tremendously important, since, prior to this, human beings lived a highly mobile hunter-gatherer lifestyle. The development of agriculture required one to stay in one spot to tend to the crops, and this, of course, led to the first settled communities. In the Fertile Crescent of the Middle East, the literal and metaphorical fruits of these labors became prominent. Some of the oldest city-states in history were developed there. The city of Jericho, for example, is routinely considered to have originated sometime in 9000 BCE. In the real estate business, they say that location is everything. And as far as ancient real estate goes, Jericho proved to be in a prime spot, since it was surrounded by natural protective barriers such as mountains, while still being in a central location as far as ancient trade routes were concerned. That's all well and good for ancient Jericho, but when one speaks of Eastern civilization, it is not long before we turn our attention to China. In China, around 7000 BCE, the roots of a great and continuous Eastern civilization would come forth.